So we go to our docs and we scroll down to how it works. We will briefly go over all of these points. I will now start explaining the fixed property. To use the fixed property, we can copy it and paste it in our grid. A normal grid always takes the full width of the app. So I can show you here, it takes the full width from the left to the right. But if you want to specify the width of the grid yourself, then you can do this by using this fixed attribute, and I will show you how. We will use it in our CSS file, so we'll take our Ion grid, our CSS file, we paste it in, and here we're going to use Ion grid width. And they can choose one of these values. In our case we'll use XL, and we can place it behind width. And then let's say we want the grid to only expand to 50%. And we won't see any changes. And it is because this rule only applies when we have a screen size which is at least 1140 pixels. So when we expand our screen, now we can see that it only takes 50% of our total screen. That's how we can see that it works. We will remove this and we'll go on with the list. Rows are horizontal groups of columns that line the columns up properly. And we go to our HTML so I can explain what it says. What this tells us, that normally rows have 12 columns, but if we would use less columns, like here, so we only use 3, then it will divide its space evenly over those columns. So 12 divided by 3 is 4, of course. So each column will take up 4 places of our row. But it's better to look at it in percentages. So 33%, 33%, 33%. And if we would add another one, because we like berries a lot, we will give this a brown color. Then the columns will be evenly provided in 25%. We're going to the third one. Content should be placed within columns. So it's not allowed to place text here or here or here. Because if we do, then it will ruin our format. So we'll remove these lines. And we will go back. What you can do is add another row inside a column, like this. And then inside of here you can put another, let's say 2 columns. Let's see. Oops, that one needs to be gone. And now when we expand our grid, we can see that we added a row with another 2 columns inside of this column. Let's make it small again. And because this is too small for the columns to be next to each other, they are automatically ordered beneath each other instead of ruining the structure by placing them after each other, and then they would cross over this column, and that's not allowed. So once again, if we expand it and there is room enough, then they will be next to each other as a default, but when there is no room, they will be underneath each other. And the first column will always be at the top, and then the second and then the third as a default. Okay, let's go back. Now we will look into size properties. This is a very powerful and interesting feature and allows us to customize our grid for each screen size. I will give a demonstration of what I mean by that to you now. First, we will not specify screen size. We just say size and we say 6. And because 12 is the default amount of columns, 6 will present 50%. I will demonstrate to you how it looks right now inside of the app. Here you see that the green column has half of the total size of the row. just like we expected. Okay, let's remove the fixed property over here. And now let's modify this column to have a different size for each screen width. We start with the smallest one. So the smallest screens will have half of the size of the row. Then we will specify the medium size. We will give it a 1. So the column will be very small. Then we will set a large screen. Let's set this one to a full row. Oh, I forgot. Large. And now let's set the last one to 3/4 of the width, or 75% of the width. So the first one should be 6, then 1, then 12, then 9. Okay, let's see what it does. To view the smallest size, we're going to add the console to it. Now we can make it very small. This is the one we're looking for. You see that it's half of the width again. Okay, then we should get 1/12 of the width, so very small. And after it, it should be the total row, and then almost the total row. But first the small one. Here we see the small one, so it works. Then we need to see that it covers the whole row. Like this, so you see it covers the whole row and pushes the rest to the bottom. And now it should cover most of the row. And you see that this also works. I will scale it down again. So this is how the breakpoint attribute of size works. Now we know how this works, we go back to the docs. We already discussed the following line, which tells us that if you do not set any size yourself, that will evenly divide the columns over the full size. We also look to the next one, so we'll skip this one. Okay. In previous episodes, we already discussed the no padding. So you can add padding or remove padding from an element. We won't have to show this again. This point tells us that there are 5 breakpoints: extra small, small, medium, large and extra large. We used almost all of them. We only skipped extra small. But you can try that one out yourself. Here you can see which amount of pixels belong to which size. The following line tells us that the grid tiers are based on a minimum width, meaning that they apply to their tier and all those largest from them. So small applies to small, medium, large and extra large, but does not apply to extra small. But on the other end, if you set the medium size and the small size, then it will automatically use the size of the medium size for all larger screens. And the last point tells us that we can customize our CSS variables inside our grid. Something we already saw at the first point, where we changed the grid size in our CSS. In this episode, we discussed all list points, but we're still not done with the grid. Once you start building apps, you will find that the grid is a very important element, so please stay tuned for the next episode, where I will write a funny code that will interact with a special feature of the grid. So please take a small walk and grab a cup of coffee, so you're ready for the next episode.